Ever get that feeling, where a good conversation just completely changes your day?
Oh, absolutely.
Like suddenly you're energized, full of new ideas.
Totally.
Well, get this. That energy, that magic. We're about to unpack how to make that happen on purpose using something called conversational leadership.
I love it. And today's deep dive is extra interesting. We're going straight to the source, a knowledge management guru named David Gertin.
He's got this online book, calls it a book, which I'll admit caught my attention.
Didn't she, right?
We'll be pulling excerpts from that. Plus, we've got a glimpse into what David really wants people to take away from his work. So, ready for the core idea here.
Lay it on me.
Conversational leadership. It's not about fancy job titles. It's about anyone, you, me, anyone listening, stepping up and sparking conversations that actually make a difference.
That's a powerful way to think about it, especially in our world, right? I mean, we're bombarded with information constantly.
It's overwhelming. And Gertin tackles this head on. He says there's no way we can make sense of it all without, you guessed it, the power of conversation.
And he's not just talking about any old chat over coffee. He argues that real understanding, particularly of complex issues, requires us to hear diverse viewpoints.
Which makes total sense, right? Like, how can you solve a problem if you're only looking at it from one angle?
Exactly. And he uses climate change as a prime example. Gertin points out that it's only through conversations, and not just between scientists, but policymakers, everyday people like you and me, that we can grasp something that complex and find solutions that actually work.
It's about bringing everyone to the table, not just the usual suspects.
Exactly. And here's the other thing about Gertin's view of conversational leadership. It's not about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about creating space for everyone to contribute, even or maybe especially when you're dealing with tough, emotionally charged issues.
And he brings up an example that stopped me in my tracks, the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission. He uses that to illustrate how powerful dialogue can be, how it can rebuild trust and create healing, even after unimaginable hurt.
Intense example, right. But it shows the potential impact. And get this, Gertin doesn't stop there. He takes this idea of leadership through conversation and links it directly to something I know you're interested in, innovation.
Okay, now that's just good connecting the dots.
Right. And this is where it gets really interesting, especially in our tech-driven world. Think about open source software, where you have developers from all over the world collaborating on these incredibly innovative solutions. I mean, look at the Linux operating system. It's a perfect example.
That's collaboration on a massive scale.
Exactly. And it shows that this idea of shared knowledge, of collective problem solving, it's not just some feel-good concept. It leads to real-world results.
And the best part, it's something we can all apply in our own lives, whether we're working on a personal project or collaborating with colleagues.
Absolutely. And that's what I love about this whole concept of conversational leadership. It's not some abstract theory. It's got real-world applications for everyone, no matter what you do or where you come from.
Totally. We're back and ready to go deeper into this whole conversational leadership thing. Remember how we talked about using conversation to actually make sense of the world?
Absolutely. It's something that really resonated with me.
Well, Gertin gets super practical about it, and some of his advice is surprisingly simple, but really powerful.
All ears.
Mm-hmm.
Especially these days, right? I mean, we're drowning in information. It's coming at us from every direction.
It's easy to feel like you're just barely keeping your head above water.
Seriously. And it's tempting to just tune it all out or retreat into our own little echo chambers where everyone agrees with us.
Which is exactly what Gertin says we need to avoid. He's all about actively seeking out diverse viewpoints. He argues that those moments when we feel uncomfortable, when our assumptions are challenged, those are the moments when we actually grow the most.
It's so true. It's like when you're stuck on a problem and someone comes along with a perspective you've never even considered. Suddenly you see the whole thing differently.
Total light bulb moment.
Right.
But here's the catch. It's not enough to just be around people who think differently. We have to actually listen, and I mean really listen, to what they have to say.
He's got a point. It's like, how many times have we all pretended to listen while we're just waiting for our turn to talk?
Guilty as charged. But Gertin offers some really practical tips on how to become a better listener. Like, he talks about paying attention not just to the words, but to all the stuff we do without even realizing it, our body language, our tone of voice.
It's amazing how much we communicate without even saying a word.
Right. So he's saying we need to be present in the moment and really try to understand where the other person is coming from.
He even suggests trying something called reflective listening, basically. You summarize what you've heard back to the person to make sure you've got it right.
Oh, that's interesting. I've heard of that. I think it's supposed to help you really make sure you're on the same page.
Exactly. It shows you're really paying attention, not just waiting for your turn. It's a small thing, but it can make a big difference in building trust and respect.
And respect is key, especially when you're talking to people who see the world completely differently than you do.
Gertine is big on that respect, being foundational to this whole conversational leadership thing. It's about valuing those different viewpoints, even if you don't agree with them, and treating each other with dignity, even, or maybe especially when you disagree.
Which, let's be honest, can be really hard.
Oh, for sure.
Especially when you feel really strongly about something. But I get it. It's about remembering that everyone has something valuable to contribute, even if you don't agree on everything.
He even goes so far as to say that we should see every conversation, even the tough ones, as a chance to learn and grow.
That's a pretty powerful mindset shift.
Right.
But real talk, it's not always easy to stay open-minded and respectful when you feel attacked or like your buttons are being pushed. So how do we actually do that? How do we cultivate empathy, especially when we're faced with viewpoints that seem totally foreign to us?
He says it starts with curiosity. Instead of shutting down or getting defensive, try asking questions. Really try to understand the experiences that have shaped the other person's views.
That makes sense.
And be willing to sit with that discomfort, Admit that you don't have all the answers. Be open to the possibility that your own perspective might need some adjusting.
So it's not about saying, oh, you're right if you don't actually believe that. It's more about trying to understand where they're coming from.
Exactly. It's about building bridges instead of walls.
And those bridges are essential if we want to move from just talking about stuff to actually making a difference in the world.
He makes a great point about that, too. It's one thing to be a good listener.
Yeah.
But we also need to be able to communicate our own ideas in a way that's clear, compelling, and respectful.
Because let's be real, if you can't get your point across, you're not going to be very effective as a leader, are you?
Not really. And it's not just about what you say, it's how you say it.
Right. Your tone, your body language, all that stuff matters.
He talks about finding that balance between being confident and being humble, assertive, but respectful. And he's big on authenticity, just being yourself.
Because people can spot a fade a mile away, right?
Totally. So it's about creating a space where everyone feels safe to be themselves and share their honest thoughts and feelings. And that's when the real magic happens.
I love that. But let's not sugarcoat it becoming a conversation. Conversational leadership pro doesn't happen overnight. It takes practice, messing up, learning as you go.
He's very upfront about that. It's a journey, not a destination. It's about embracing the messiness of it all and being willing to make mistakes.
And remembering that it doesn't have to be this big, intimidating thing. It can be as simple as being more mindful in your everyday conversations.
With your colleagues, your friends, your family, every conversation has the potential to plant a seed.
And those seeds, over time, they can grow into something amazing. But as with anything worthwhile, there are going to be challenges.
Oh yeah, for sure. And when we come back, we're diving headfirst into those challenges, giving you the tools and strategies you need to navigate those tricky waters and unlock the full potential of conversational leadership.
All right, we're back and ready to tackle the trickier side of conversational leadership. Because, it's not all sunshine and roses, right?
Definitely not. Even with the best intentions, things can get messy.
And Gertine doesn't shy away from that at all. He dives right into those potential pitfalls. One that really jumped out at me was this whole idea of decision paralysis.
Oh yeah, I've been in those meetings, you talk and talk, but nothing gets decided.
It's like being stuck on a hamster wheel. Not exactly a recipe for effective leadership.
Not at all. And Gertine points out, it happens all the time, especially when you've got a lot of passionate people, each with their own strong opinions.
Right. Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So how do we avoid that? How do we make sure those conversations actually lead somewhere?
Well, he makes a really interesting point about the importance of a skilled facilitator.
Oh, like a referee for a conversation.
Kind of, more like a conductor, maybe. They're not necessarily the expert on the topic, but they're an expert at guiding the conversation itself, making sure everyone gets heard, and keeping things moving towards a clear outcome.
Okay, that makes sense. So instead of trying to be the smartest person in the room, it's about being the best at actually managing the conversation.
Exactly. A good facilitator knows how to set ground rules, make sure everyone feels respected, and prevent those endless circular debates.
That feels like an incredibly valuable skill, even outside of work,
Absolutely. Gertine even suggests practicing it in your everyday life with friends, family, whoever next time you're making a decision together, try using those facilitation skills.
Love it. But even with the best facilitation in the world, there are going to be times when cultural differences add another layer of complexity.
Oh, for sure. And Gertin talks about that extensively. What might be considered assertive in one culture could be seen as totally disrespectful in another.
It's so easy to misinterpret things, especially in today's globalized world.
Absolutely. And those misunderstandings can really derail things. So he emphasizes the importance of approaching those conversations with humility.
So it's not about being an expert on every culture, but more about being aware of your own biases and being open to learning.
Exactly. Ask questions. Listen more than you talk. And don't assume you have all the answers. That empathy we talked about earlier, it's crucial here.
It's about remembering that we're all just human, figuring things out as we go.
Well said. And when we approach conversations with that mindset, even the most difficult situations can become opportunities to connect and grow.
It's like when you travel to a new country where everything is different, but somehow you still find ways to connect with people.
It's a beautiful thing. And it speaks to the power of this whole conversational leadership idea. It's not about one person dictating everything. It's about creating a space where everyone feels safe to share, to learn, and to build something better together.
That's a powerful vision. And it reminds me of something Gertin said that really stuck with me. He talked about how every conversation is like planting a seed.
And over time, those seeds can grow into something truly remarkable.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive into conversational leadership, I want to leave you with this. What seed are you going to plant today? What conversation are you going to start that could make a difference either in your own life or in the world around you?
It's a question worth asking ourselves every day. Because the power to create positive change through conversation, it's something we all have.
That's a great place to leave it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Remember, every conversation has the potential to be a force for good, so go out there and start planting those seeds.